All right. Hey, everybody. Well, here I am. It is Friday night. I promised everyone ghost stories starting in September. And, well, tonight I'm not at home. As you can see, I'm going to flip it around here so everybody can see. I am in Helen, Georgia. Matter of fact, I'm sitting at the Hofbrauhaus, which I have eaten at a couple of times today. It's a great little place. Flip this back around. Good food, good drinks, and some really, really good, friendly people. If you're in town in Helen, this is a great place to stop. Matter of fact, the hotel I'm staying at is right behind me. But, alright. I promised you ghost stories, so tonight we're going to start off with one of my own tales for the Fireside. Originally when I wrote this, it was called Cherokee Dance, but, you know, the more I read it and the more I looked at it, I decided that it was better called Native Spirits. So, without further ado, here on a dark Friday night in Helen, Georgia, I'm going to bring to you the first in the series of ghost stories live for the Halloween season, Native Spirits by W.R. Frady. Native Spirits. Jack took a deep breath as he surveyed the view around him. Autumn bathed the countryside with its rustic splendor. The windswept trees were ablaze with the various shades of red, orange, and gold. Nearby, the constant babble of a mountain stream played in his ears. The undergrowth consisted mostly of rhododendron, laurels, and other small shrubs which lined the old trail. To him, the Blue Ridge Mountains were breathtaking at this time of year. Even the air itself seemed cleaner, although it bore a faint, earthy scent of mold, mildew, and damp moss. He watched amazed as a flock of grouse took to the air and spread their wings for their journey toward warmer climates. The trail on which Jack had been traveling took a narrow turn around a mixed copse of ancient timber and pine. Jack remembered coming here as a boy and how he had always had wanted to return once he had gotten older. The steady gibberish of the stream was soon replaced by the faint roar of a waterfall in the distance. The gentle rush of sound washed over him and served to remind him of why he had come to this all-but-forgotten place. By comparison, this was much more relaxing than the everyday hustle and bustle of his job in Hickory. Here, he could take things at his own pace. No phones rang, no one demanded his attention here or there. No, it was just him and the trail. An acute breeze swept through the woods, stirring his hair and sent an invigorating chill through his body. Jack was so lost in the moment that he didn't notice the pair of squirrels until he had happened upon them. Spooked by the man's sudden appearance, they scrambled up the nearest tree. Jack couldn't help but give a light-hearted laugh as they chattered at him for disturbing their work in gathering the various foodstuffs they needed for the coming winter. The waterfall was just as he had remembered it. Its long stream formed a misty veil as the water fell from the rocky knoll some 80 feet overhead. The clearing was bathed in a fine white spray, giving the whole an almost dreamlike state. of peace and tranquility. A thin layer of moisture tickled his face, melting away the cares of the world as he became lost with the nostalgic memories of his childhood, when days like this were spent at this little old clearing, just he and his father, who could bring a picnic or build a small fire by the basin where they would roast hot dogs and just relax and enjoy the day. Jack sat down as the welcome thoughts of yesteryear came over him. He inhaled the fresh, moist air, becoming more relaxed with each thought. Soon, his mind was carried away on the breeze, taking him back to the days of his youth. Once more he was a boy, traveling the trails with his father. His spirit was free, without worry, and his mind drifted over adventures where kings and knights traveled through enchanted forests such as this to meet the fairy queen who would endow them with the knowledge of ancients. The waterfall echoed through the woods around him as he played out the adventures by the water's edge. Jack basked in the cold mist which ran down his face in tiny rivulets. A great longing filled his being. Oh, how he loved this place. He could not recall the many times he wished he had never had to leave this magical glen. The gathering moisture in his clothes sent a chill through his body, but he didn't care. Above him the birds flit through the boughs of the towering trees, and leaves fell around him, snatched from the branches by the gentle breeze which announced the approaching nightfall. In all his happiness, one thing still nagged at him. He was very cold. Jack's eyes popped open as he sat up in amazement. Had it all been a dream? He looked around as the icy beads of water ran down his face. Once again, he had regained his senses. Jack realized that he was still in the same place he had sat down to rest. Much like in the dream, a frigid evening breeze chilled him through his dampened clothes. Everything was the same as he had last seen it. The echo of the waterfall now filled the surrounding woodland, seeming to grow louder as the evening drew on. The cheerful songs of the birds, getting ready for their autumn migration, had been replaced by the steady pulse of crickets and katydids. An owl nearby sounded its hollow call. The whole area was prepared for nightfall. Well, the whole area save for Jack. He silently cursed himself for both dozing off and for not packing a flashlight for those just-in-case purposes. He glanced at the waterfall once more as night settled over the land, and then turned to start back down the trail. The sound of water was soon swallowed by the surrounding darkness. Jack struggled to remember all the paths he took to get there. Had it been daylight, or if he had brought some sort of light source, he would have been able to see the usual landmarks that had guided his steps earlier that day. But as it was, he might as well have been walking blindfolded. Overhead, a lonely crow split the silence with its raspy, if mournful cry. If Jack hadn't known any better, he might have thought the ebon bird was mocking his distress with its wicked laughter. Again, Jack cursed himself for his incompetent lack of preparations as the trail forked in several locations. He struggled feverishly to remember which way he had come from. In one fit of scolding himself, he dashed his foot against a tree's root, which sent him sprawling to the ground. The impact winded Jack, but other than a few scrapes at the back of his palms, he was pretty much unharmed. As he dusted himself off, Jack's heart sank. for somewhere in the distance a mournful howl filled the air. His blood turned to ice as several more howls answered the first. Wolves. Jack shook his head as the thought raced through his mind. The last thing that he needed to hear was wolves. He knew that wolves were rare in North Carolina, but he never thought. He never thought that he would ever have to worry about them. He stumbled over the low brush as he picked up his pace. The trail had quickly become the last thing on Jack's mind, as all he wanted to do was put distance between him and the ghastly howls. Then, the once peaceful trail now seemed to be filled with a malevolence undreamed of in Jack's youth. Skeletal limbs rent his clothes as they ripped and tore at him. The various hardwoods became towering black sentinels whose great limbs had blotted out the night sky. Dreadful groans filled the forest in accompaniment to the terrible howls which seemed to pursue his every step. There was a flash of cold, followed by a fiery sting of sharp scratch as something unseen raked his upper cheek. After he had been running for what seemed like forever, Jack stopped to catch his breath. He looked around in hopes
We went down there, but he wanted to leave, and I wanted
to get his bearing on where he might be. It didn't take him but a moment to realize that he was lost. The wind had grown colder, making him shiver in his damp clothing. The howls seemed in fast pursuit of him as they drew closer, and just as he thought all hope was lost, a new solution arose in the distance. For in the woods ahead he saw the faint flicker of a fire. He was immediately relieved to see that someone else was here in the woods, so he made for the light. Hopefully, it's campers who could point me back to the main road, he mumbled as he trudged toward the campfire.
I was telling Bryce this earlier tonight, this is my goal tonight.
The sound of singing soon played upon his ears as he approached the firelight. From where he was,
Whatever happens, happens.
Jack could see silhouetted figures dancing about in only passing glimpses. Sorry, let me reread that. From where he was, Jack could see silhouetted figures dancing about, but only as passing glimpses. As he drew near the edge of the camp, he stopped, amazed at what he was witnessing. The campers weren't campers at all, but Cherokee Indians. There were no tents, wigwams, or any other shelter that as he would have imagined. Instead, there were only bedrolls fashioned out of what appeared to be animal skins. The Indians had a peace about them, uncommon to most of the people he had encountered. The music stopped as everyone turned their heads towards Jack. An involuntary shudder shook his body at the sudden focus of attention. Their leader, a man with snow-white hair and who appeared to be in his early 60s, motioned for him to enter. The Cherokee welcomed him into their camp with open arms. They offered him fresh meat and drink, as well as a seat by the fire, and until this moment he did not realize how hungry he had become. The meat was tender and had been roasted with a variety of natural herbs which made its full flavor stand out in his mouth. He washed it down with a concoction which consisted of juices from the many berries and fruits of the area. As he took it all in, a small group of performers gathered around the fire to relate the tales of heroes long gone. Jack watched, amazed at how well the storytellers used both speech and dance to bring their legendary heroes and great spirits to life. The chieftain had several doeskin blankets brought out to Jack. He told Jack to rest and be still for the night, for he was their guest on this cold autumn's eve. Jack did as the chieftain bade. All the while he continued to watch as the ancient legends and story unfolded right before his eyes. Eventually he began to grow weary as his sight became dim. The sound of the Cherokee's music soothed him like a lullaby, taking him further into the realm of mists, where the borders of dreams and reality blurred beyond recognition. Soon Jack's thoughts started to drift, taking him away from the firelight and into the woods. In his mind, he was a deer, prancing through the forest. Cool streams dampened his coat as he passed through the swift currents. Leaves swished beneath his feet, only to resettle in their shuffled drifts behind him. The frosty air felt good against his face as he crested the top of a hill. He couldn't help the chill that ran through his body at the disturbing sound of howls coming from behind him. There were many wolves, too many to count. He rounded the bend of a rocky knoll just in time to see a large furry silhouette leap at him from the shadows, its sinewy maw open wide, with sharp teeth seeking to bite. Jack awoke from the dream with a start to find the doeskin blankets still wrapped tightly about him. The dim glow of the morning light peered through the mist. The air was cold, crisp, and damp from the heavy dew which dripped from the many plants and leaves that surrounded him. He stretched hard, unable to restrain the groan which escaped his lips, and then looked around to thank his hosts for their hospitality. However, to his surprise, the clearing contained no signs of anyone ever having been there. When he looked closely, the only footprints in the clearing other than his own were those of nearly a dozen wolves. Unable to understand what had happened, Jack picked up his blankets and left as quickly as his feet could carry him. Well, reading this for the first time in many years, I could definitely tell this was written back in my earlier days of writing, and is long overdue being rewritten and just revised. I still love the classic story of it, though. Being lost in the woods, and then coming upon the unexpected in the form of help, in the form of what appeared to be ordinary people. In this case, Cherokee Indians. However, only to find out there was more to meet the eye around that campfire that night. And maybe a little more to the story than just a dream. Only Jack could tell you that one. But then, it is just a tale for the fireside. Next week, I'll be back in North Carolina, back in the Granite Falls Sawmills area, where we will pick up doing this once more around the campfire for session 2 of the live ghost stories on Instagram. Everyone, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Have a great Labor Day. I will see each and every one of you back in North Carolina when I get home. This has been a much, much needed escape. And it's good to join with you on here. May you have a wonderful weekend. Be happy, be safe. Make the world around you a better place. I'll talk to you again soon. Until then, see you in the shadows.